For a long time now, tech has been moving in the wrong direction. My entire life, I've been waiting for people to move away from these closed platforms, all this proprietary software, and move toward open standards, open source software. You know, you guys have no clue what any of your devices is actually doing. You don't get to see into the code base of the software that's running on any of the machines that you use in your daily life. So there's no way for you to know exactly what any of your devices are actually doing. You don't have any way to audit the security of any of the code that's running on these devices. And there have been so many attempts to urge people to move away from these closed source, closed off platforms toward an open future where you can see every bit of code on every machine you run, and you can know exactly what it's doing at any time if you choose to do so. Whenever when Linux came out, that was the idea behind it. Uh, Even before that, guys like Richard Stallman built their own versions of all the utilities that were being used on Unix systems at the time. And they released all of the code under a new license. So you could edit the code, you could see exactly what was happening, you knew what everything was doing, and you could make changes and improve it. As long as you know, shared any changes you made with the people who wrote the code, and it created this whole free software movement. And it's never really gotten into the mainstream. It's always been kind of in the background. There's been people who advocate for free software, and I don't mean just free as in it doesn't cost you any money, but free as in it's completely open and you can make any changes to it. You can do anything you want with it, and you know exactly what every bit of software is doing because you can look right at the code. I've been following YouTubers for quite a while who have been using open source and free software and have been advocating for people to move over away from these walled gardens and these closed off platforms that everybody is stuck on right now. But those YouTubers have a big following, but no one quite this large has made this type of move, as far as I'm aware. This is huge. A guy like PewDiePie making this type of change, I think, is going to be extremely influential. He already switched to Linux recently, and for many of the same reasons that he goes over in this video. But to go as far as to subtract Google from your life, it's very complicated. There's a lot of steps involved, but it's worth it. I've been making the same changes myself, and I wanted to watch this video with you guys and kind of go over what each thing is and my thoughts on it. I'm not going to just play it unedited. I'm going to be pausing and commenting as we go. So I hopefully Felix doesn't get too mad about it. I've never been a big PewDiePie fan. I mean, my familiarity with him, mainly it's the younger generation. I'm a little bit older. But I know he's huge. I know he's, very influential. And if I had to pick between big YouTubers, that I like, I definitely like him a lot better than someone like Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast, I think, has focused too much on creating a formula that makes money more so than anything else. And yeah, he raises money for, he does good in the world and everything, but he's created this whole, formulaic approach to everything. This YouTube channel, before I took over it, that's all that was uploaded here was a bunch of formulaic, repetitive stuff that was designed to catch attention and try to make money. But I wanted to kind of move it in another direction. This channel for me is just going to be a place where I'm going to upload whatever I want to upload. Stuff I like to do, stuff I'm interested in. Just going to put it here. I'm not really concerned about it making tons of money. I think this is something that needs to be highlighted because this guy's huge. I mean, PewDiePie is really influential, and I hope that more people follow his lead and make these types of changes and move away from these closed-off platforms, devices where you have no idea what they're actually doing. You don't get to see the code. You don't know what it's doing at all. You have no idea who's able to read your data, or you have no control over it whatsoever. Over to open standards where communities can write the software and can make changes to it, make sure it's secure, and you can know exactly what's happening at any second on any device that you run. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video now, and we'll go over it.
Maybe you're wondering, why is he wearing that cool hat? It's because the tech overlords are listening. Now I can finally say, Google schmoogle. What are you gonna do, Google? You're completely powerless now. What's that?
I mean, this guy being a YouTube emperor, YouTube, of course, is owned by Google. Him making this change, I mean, it's gotta hurt, really. Hi, Charles. I see your message there, Charles Milky Stats. I mean, I never thought he would go this far. He installed Linux on his machines, and everybody thought he was crazy. But it was like I was tuned in. I was eating popcorn because that's awesome, I mean, I use a Mac, full disclosure, but I also use Linux. I've got a lot of Linux expertise and many years of working on Linux. But I use a multitude of different devices. But, compared to Windows, Linux, it's night and day. And these days, Steam OS runs games better than Windows. All these people keep doing these benchmarks and comparing Steam OS to Windows, and it runs all the games better. And now you can install Steam OS on your own hardware. You don't have to just buy a Steam Deck. You can replace Windows with Steam OS, and it runs your games better. Who would want bloated, closed-source software like Windows, where they can have ads built into the operating system, and they can install apps you didn't ask for, which they do all the time, when you can have something like SteamOS where you fully control it and it runs your games better. And since SteamOS runs on Linux, it's not just a gaming system. You can do Office apps like, school work and regular work, and you can use it as a desktop operating system as well. It's completely flexible. Anyway.
Google owns YouTube? I would Google that, but I literally can't. What are they gonna do? Censor this video? Demonetize it? Bury it under the algorithm so no one can find it? You're completely powerless, Google. You got nothing on me. So the past couple of weeks, I've completely de-Googled. I don't use any of Google's so-called free...
Look at this picture. See all these apps that you have to go through and replace once you de-Google. I mean, especially if it's your phone, which he goes into later. He has an Android phone, and he replaces Android with a completely different operating system that's based on Android, but it strips out all the Google stuff, and it's completely open. You can look at all the code. You know exactly what it's doing, and it's way more secure. You can actually be completely anonymous on a Graphene OS phone. And there's some other YouTubers that I'll link that go in detail on how to do that. There's one called The Hated One, who's a YouTuber I love. Quite a bit smaller channel than PewDiePie, but he's been talking about this for a long time, and I think it's definitely worth exploring.
Services. Except YouTube. I literally can't escape. It's surprisingly hot to wear a tinfoil hat. I don't know if you guys knew this.
I have to make sure to
worn a tinfoil
pause
hat before?
frequently because
Now, this all
wanna
started
get
because of
in
privacy
trouble.
concerns. Being tracked with it, literally everything I do just feels kind of odd. Mainly because I wanted to also regain control over my software.
Privacy and control. You know, two huge things. Because again, if you don't know what the code is, if you have a device and you can't see the code that it's running, you have no idea what it's doing. You know, you can try to trust the company that made it, but you really don't know. You know, he talks about in this video, which we'll go over later, there's all these platforms we use on a daily basis that might be free to use, but it's because they're monetizing our data. They're gathering data on you and they're selling it to data brokers and all these different people, and they're making money off you. That's why it's a free platform. So replace that with something where you know every bit of code that it's running, and there's nobody else involved in the transaction besides you. And you can verify that because you can look at the code. Anyway, so Linux is that, but also Graphene OS and all the other things he talks about.
And not to be at mercy of what the tech overlords decide to do just one day. But most importantly, I don't want to pay $20 a year for 100 gigabyte storage. Not happening. I realized since swapping to Linux, my life has just been going upwards. I'm practically ascending next step. But I realized there's always an open source alternative. And
Like, I don't want to just play the video unedited. You know, I have to make sure I comment on this because I'm not trying to steal his, you know, anything from him, obviously. But yeah, I mean, as far as the hosting, the storage, you know, I recently put together a RAID system, and I'm probably gonna make a video about it pretty soon. And basically, if you don't know, it's basically multiple hard drives, and you set it up in a way where if one drive fails, you can swap it out and you don't lose any data. It rebuilds everything. And you can do it if you have a bigger system. You can actually have it set up where multiple drives can fail and you can replace them and you won't lose any data. And with that and Nextcloud, which he talks about, you can create your own cloud storage. You don't have to use iCloud or any other, you know, cloud service on your phones or on your devices. You can host it all at home, and then you don't have to worry about anyone else being able to see what it is, or it's completely encrypted between you and your remote devices, and you don't have to pay anything for it, and you don't have to pay a subscription fee.
a lot of times they're better. They just don't have $1 billion budget to market themselves. So I went down the de-Google rabbit hole, and I want to share what I learned, because by the end of this, once you know what I know, bro, you're gonna want one of these cool hats as well. So let's go through the de-Googleization. I want to be honest and share what I think you should absolutely change, and maybe what was more hassle than worth. Number 1, your search engine. Change your search engine right now. You can do it now while I keep yapping. Just go to your browser settings, find the search default browser, and change it to DuckDuckGo. It's a search engine.
DuckDuckGo is actually based on Google still. It still searches Google, but it does it anonymously, so it's not you using Google directly. So DuckDuckGo is kind of like a privacy layer between you and Google. There's other ones too, like Start Page, and there's even more. I think I've got a few suggestions too that I'll probably add to the description that might even be better than DuckDuckGo.
That doesn't track what you do, it just works. Boom. Maybe you prefer everything you do online to be tracked and logged. I don't know, maybe you're in that ballpark. I think just most people are either oblivious or lazy. So I'm telling you now, don't be lazy. Number 2, your browser. When I told you to change your default search engine, you did not just do that inside of Google Chrome, did you? Say it.
I mean, I don't know. I don't like Chrome. I've never liked it. It's always been bloated and slow. Every time I've run multiple tabs, it's always slow. I mean, in the past, I would just kind of use the default browser that comes with whatever system. I mean, even on Windows, you know, Microsoft Edge, before they switched to being based on Chrome, it ran faster. There was an earlier version of Edge that was like really quick, and I just used that. But you know, these days, browsers like Brave or Mullvad browser is probably the best as far as privacy goes. So he suggests don't use Chrome, and he mentions a couple of other ones. But if you really care about privacy, Mullvad browser is the way to go. Or that or Brave. Brave is also really good.
So there are way better browsers out there. I use Firefox. It's kind of B tier, but you can lock it down into S tier. A lot of people swear by Brave browser. I never tried it. My point is, this is super easy to change.
I used to like Firefox.
Have you ever thought why browsers are free to begin with? Why is Microsoft so... Why do they want you to use their browser so goddamn badly, you know? Why do they all make it free? Could it be because they track everything you do online and sell or trade your data? What?
I mean, it's crazy. Even on my phone, whenever I try to search on Google with my own browser, it always pops up and tries to get me to switch to the Google app instead of using the browser. And if you hit the wrong button, it like gets you stuck in this loop and you have to like quit your browser and go back to it to get out of it. It's really annoying. I don't know, but I kind of lost my train of thought. It's the beauty of doing it live, right?
What do you mean? They don't make this out of the goodness in their heart? You telling me Google isn't just $1 trillion charity? What? I found online that in 2023, Google paid Apple to be their default search browser in Safari. Guess how much? 20 billion. Jesus Christ. They definitely want you to use Google.
Yeah, I mean, nothing to see there, right? That's an insane amount of money. Like, why would they care so much if they weren't somehow benefiting from it? I mean, not only the fact that they're gathering your data, but they're not just selling it, but they're just archiving it. Google has always been this huge data behemoth. They just archive as much data as they possibly can for who knows what. The federal government can't decrypt a lot of encrypted traffic on the internet because they don't have the technology. So what they do is they mass archive encrypted data so that one day when a quantum computer comes out and they can decrypt it all, they'll go back and decrypt all the encrypted stuff that they saved in large quantities. So I'm sure they work with giant tech companies to do that for them. I mean, the thing about the government is every time they spend money, they spend it into the private sector. So they're paying companies that already exist to do this for them. They're not going to build up all the infrastructure and start, building up all the servers and storage and maintaining all that. They'll just have huge tech companies do it for them. So I have a feeling when Google is, archiving mass quantities of data, that's probably why.
So just don't. It will take you 2 minutes. Go do it. Number 3, the third thing I changed. Like many of you, I've been using Google Mail for years and years and years. And apparently up until 2017, that's when they stopped scanning your emails to serve you ads. So now Gmail is a little less creepy, but if you think about it, it is probably the most invasive service that they run. Like
they still are. I'm sure they still archive the data. It's going to be really hard for me to get rid of Gmail because I've got so many different websites and accounts that use it that I don't even remember, that I'm going to go dig through and find them all and switch them all over to something else. I mean, email is tricky because you can use privacy-focused email like Proton Mail or Tutanota, which I can link in the description as well. Or you could try to host your own email server, but that's a lot more complicated. And most people tell you don't bother trying to do your own email, like self-hosted email, because it's just a lot to deal with. But I think most people that probably aren't using their email for really high-profile stuff, most of the email you get is probably junk anyway. So I think self-hosting email actually is a viable option. And I'll probably make a video about doing that because I plan to do that myself once I get more storage set up and everything.
And there are free alternatives out there like Proton. I haven't tried it out. I decided to send this bitch and get my own email. I paid a small fee. It was fiddly as hell. But at least people won't think I'm poor and have like Google Schmoogle in my ad domain. Number 4.
So what he did...
de-Googling lately.
What he did is he actually just bought a domain name and then probably has a server somewhere that's hosting it. He doesn't have a local storage server to host it on. So he probably just paid like a company to set up an email for him, like an enterprise grade email. A lot of companies do that too. They'll buy a domain name and set up a website, and they'll just use like the off the shelf email product that the host provides a lot of times, and they'll just customize it with their own stuff. So that's probably what he did. That's probably not the most private way to go because you still don't really know like what the email server is doing. You don't know all the code that it's running. You don't have any way to audit it for security. So you really don't know who all could be snooping in that. It's not as private as it might seem, but it's still a major step up from something like Gmail.
I realize it's time for me to D something else. I don't want to say the joke. Anyway, I started working with G Fuel 6 years ago.
I'm going to skip this.
All time G Fuel this green webizing it. My god, ecosystem.
Yeah, but buy his G Fuel, guys.
Without realizing it. My goddamn TV is Google. I thought it was a Sony TV. You know, open up, it's like Google TV. How did that happen? I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm supposed to be enamored by the phone, how amazing it is with its incredible hardware, and how powerful it is. But if it's so great, then why do I feel like I'm the product? Huh? I hate my phone. Notifications just feel like they're there to suck me in, not to tell me anything useful.
Yeah, phones at this point are just toys. I remember a time, believe it or not, back in the olden times, probably before a lot of people that watch this channel were even born, before we had internet everywhere. There was a time when we didn't have that. And I had a phone, but it was like a dumb phone, like a flip phone, you know. And I used to daydream about the days when, I'll have internet in my pocket. I'll be able to access it anywhere, and I'll have basically a computer in my pocket. And now that we have it, it kind of sucks. I mean, you can't get away from it. It's attached to you everywhere you go. And I think most people these days are so addicted to their apps and everything on their phone that they can never part with it. He doesn't switch to a dumb phone. He keeps his Android phone, which I would recommend. I don't recommend people switch to like a flip phone or, you know, one of those types of phones, like a dumb phone. It just doesn't seem practical. I have a feeling most people would switch back to a smartphone pretty quickly. It's a huge change to try to do that. It completely transforms your life, which could be good in the long run, but I think in the short term, it's better to just keep your smartphone, but replace the operating system, which is what he does.
All these apps and features. I feel like my attention span is just getting mushed the more I use my phone. I hate it. It's just one big giant distraction device. So I have a Pixel 9, and it is a good phone. And I already own it. So instead of switching it out to like a dumb phone or something like that I know a lot of people do, I want to install a custom OS on it. There was a lot of them to choose from, but I opted for Graphene.
When I saw this, I was so excited. I never thought I'd hear of a YouTuber this big talking about switching to Graphene OS like this. It's insane. Graphene is an awesome project. I haven't done a huge deep dive on it myself yet, but it gives you so much more control. It replaces the stock Android on your phone with a completely open source customized version that strips out all of Google. You can still get all the same apps. They have alternative app stores, and you can still get all the same apps. And you have so much more control over every single thing that happens. You can prevent apps from having access to your data. You can create multiple profiles on the phone where one profile can't access the data from the other profiles. So you can kind of keep different groups of apps separate from one another.
Graphene. Mainly because it felt like the biggest point the finger to Google, you know? It's an operating system focused on privacy and security. Apparently so much so that even Edward Cullen uses it. Did I get that right? I would Google it.
Edward Snowden.
But here's the thing, okay? For some reason, I felt like...
Hold on, if you guys don't know who Edward Snowden is, you really should find out. The government hates him. He actually had to flee America because he leaked information about the government spying on everybody. Like actual information about it. He didn't just say it. He actually leaked internal classified documents explaining what they were doing in detail, which I think is a hero, personally. You know, you got to fight against this stuff. You got to be willing to put your life on the line sometimes to fight for what's right. And spying is not right. Especially, at the time, this was all post 9/11, and they used 9/11 as this excuse to basically just lock down everything and take away everybody's rights and invade everybody's privacy. And they constantly said, we're not doing this to Americans. This is just for terrorist targets, communicating overseas. But then Edward Snowden showed that, yes, they are, in fact, spying on everybody. The NSA built a huge new spy center that's like larger than government buildings. And it was kept secret, and it was leaked by people like Snowden and Julian Assange, and then suddenly the news had to talk about it because it was out there. Everybody found out about it the hard way. And insane amount of spying is just unbelievable. It's to the point where any type of encryption that you could use, most of them, the government has a backdoor because it's designed that way. They won't let big companies, put out new types of encryption that they don't have some way to reverse. But there is something called PGP, which the government actually investigated the guy who created it and tried to claim he was a terrorist just because he created a way to strongly encrypt messages where only the two people involved in the communication could ever read what the messages are. And, privacy is a fundamental right, you guys. This isn't the same thing as secrecy. There's a big difference between privacy and secrecy, and it's important to understand that. Because, just because you don't have anything to hide, that doesn't mean you shouldn't protect your privacy. Because even if you don't think the government cares what you're up to, or what you what messages you send, or what you have on your devices, you don't know who else could get access to that data. Just because the government has a back door, that doesn't mean that only the government has access to that back door. We've seen multiple times where backdoors have been exposed, hackers used them for long periods of time before the public found out, and then they were finally patched. And this is constantly happening. iPhones, for example, there was an Israeli company called NSO Group that created this software called Pegasus, and it was exploiting security flaws in iPhones to get access to people's data. Those security flaws were left there on purpose so the government could do that. And hackers found out about it. And we didn't know it was happening for years, and it was being actively exploited. So this is not just a theoretical thing.
I'm the crazy one. Huh? What? Why do you want to Google so bad, huh? What do you got to hide, huh? This guy got graphene on his phone. What's up with that? I feel a little judged, okay? But after using graphene, I realize, no, this is how it should be. I'm not the crazy one. There's a few features on Graphene that I really like, and these are just to name a few. Especially with security, I really like how they amped it up, but the fact that I close an app on Graphene and it closes the app. Crazy. A lot of times on your phone, if you think you've closed an app, but in reality, running in the background and still tracking whatever it is they want to, Graphene, nuke that shit. It's gone. Such a crazy concept, right? I'm the crazy.
Hey T-Dog, how's it going? Yeah, did you hear about this? Did you guys see this video before I brought this up and started streaming about it? I'm sure most people probably did. I mean, he's got a massive audience. I'm doing good. Yeah, I was talking about T-Dog. I don't know if you're probably subscribed to the channel before I took over it, but I was talking about how earlier this channel was. Well, you should definitely watch it. Well, we're going over it here, but I'm kind of giving more detail about each thing he's talking about because I'm really interested in this topic. I've been following other YouTubers who've been talking about this for a long time. Hey Rex, how's it going? I didn't expect to see you here. Yeah, I'm up way too late. I should be in bed right now. But yeah, this channel used to be a bunch of AI, or not AI generated, but formulaic, stuff that's meant to just get people's attention and make money. And I don't want this channel to be that. So when I took over, I decided to just make it whatever I want. If I want to make something, I'll just make it, basically. But I'll go ahead and resume this.
Easy one. Number 2, I control exactly what the app has access to. You can use file or storage scopes, I think it's called. And if I want to give an app access to a certain type of files, I pick which folder. Not the entire device, as it should be. Not some vague little pop-up going like, hey, do you want to give them access to this? No, complete control. Number 3, whenever you install an app on Graphene, it asks you before installing it, hey, do you want to give this app access to your internet? Because a lot of times the answer is, heck no.
Yeah, not every app needs internet access. Yeah, T-Dog, I go through and I subscribe to people who are subscribed to me on other channels. So my main channel is called Bitcoin Live. But this channel is not a crypto channel. But yeah, what I do is I'll go through the list of people subscribed, especially the larger people, and I subscribe back to them. Because what's cool about that is if you make content, it helps boost it to the people who are subscribed to me. So it kind of creates this whole network effect,
Not happening. I realized I was trying desperately to find a keyboard that has Japanese, Swedish, and English. I really like the Swift kind of typing, you know? I just couldn't find an open source alternative, and I was like, what do I do? And then I realized the alternative is Microsoft or Google, okay? And I realized the keyboard that they offer is connected to the internet. Why? Why? Imagine you bought a physical keyboard and it was secretly connected to the internet, sending big tech everything you type. We're not doing it.
Yeah, like why does a virtual keyboard need to have internet access? It's insane. And it seems like a subtle thing that most people just don't even pay attention to. But, you know, like there's a reason that that app is free and it has internet access. Because if you read their privacy policy, they're telling you right there what they're doing with all your data. Because they have to by law. They've got to tell you at least that they're gathering it to do with whatever they want. They won't tell you who ends up with it, though. And that's the thing. And plus, if they can gather it, then that means hackers can gather it too.
Anything weird, just trust us, bro. It's so messed up. On Graphene, I still have the option, and if I want to take a Google app, I can starve it, put it in one of those. I still don't like that I use a Google app, but no, actually it's good. Google is at my mercy for once. Feels good. Another feature that I think is kind of obvious and most people would appreciate, but there was a fourth hidden feature on Graphene that I love. That it is not a feature, but for me it ended up being one. Like I talked about in the beginning, it feels a lot of times when I use a phone, it's such a distraction. There are some apps that you probably have to use. Maybe it's for work or because of friends and you want to connect. Whatever, you're gonna have to use certain apps that you don't really want to use. So I decided to put all those apps, and you can do this as well actually, on a different profile.
Yeah, that's huge right there. Your phone probably can't do that. And you can separate apps by profiles, and it sandboxes them so they have no access to each other's data. Like this group of apps can't access the data for the other group of apps. Not only that, he doesn't talk about this. I don't think he's as focused on the anonymous aspect of Graphene OS, but you can anonymize those profiles completely. So it seems like to any outside observer that the people using one profile, the person using one profile, is a completely different person than the person using the other profile. And you can be extremely anonymous with Graphene OS if you really choose to. Which the thing is, you know, anonymous, a lot of people don't care about that, but you have to understand, most people's social security numbers have been leaked at this point. Like, there have been huge data breaches, all of our data's out there. I think it's actually worth it to try to be anonymous a lot of times. It's not necessarily something that's, you know, just for like weirdos.
The good thing about Graphene is that on a different profile, all these apps are contained in that profile. They can't connect to anything else on my phone or run in the background or anything like that. That's what's great about Graphene, and that's why, to me, it felt like a good solution with all the apps that I don't want to use. But what this ended up doing was that, okay, now I need to use this app that I don't like to use. It feels intentional going there. I don't even see these apps when I use my phone on a regular basis. And it made it so that my phone starts feeling like it's serving me again, like an actual useful tool that it supposedly is, right? So yeah, huge fan. I'm so glad I swapped out. It's probably the best thing I did so far, but it gets better, okay?
I'm playing too much of his stuff without commenting. I'm probably going to get copyright struck over it. The cool thing though is I'm not really that concerned about it. Like if he ends up taking all the like ad revenue from this video, it doesn't matter to me. I make enough on the other channel that it's not a big deal.
Ride this couple weeks, I tell you what. Is it 6 or 5? I don't, I lost count. Anyway, password managers. What do you mean password 123 isn't gonna cut it? I hate password managers. Why? Because they cost 67 pounds. Those are 5 kilo.
I mean, I don't know. I've never paid for a password manager. You know, my iPhone has iCloud, or it's got the iCloud keychain, so I just use that. But I mean, everybody's got a built-in password manager on their phone at this point. I don't know why anybody would pay for it. I know there's a lot of the ones you hear about, like KeyPass and LastPass, but I never understood why you use those when all that functionality is already built into your phone as it is. And the cool thing about Android is it's got a really secure chip in there. Like there was a story, and I'll link a video that talks about this more on another channel. But there was a story a few years ago about these terrorists that, you know, they got their iPhone and they couldn't unlock it and they wanted to. And Apple was really proud of the fact that they refused to unlock the phone for the feds. Apple said, no, we refuse to create a special software update to force on the phone that'll let you unlock it and access all the data. But the thing is, Android, you couldn't do that if you wanted to. So Apple had the ability, and they just said no, presumably. That's what they told the press anyway. But on Android, nobody could do that. There's no such thing. The security chip in there is such that if you tried to do something like that, it would vaporize all the data. If you try to tamper with the chip, it vaporizes all the data. It's way more secure than iPhone. Apple tries to claim that they're all about privacy and everything. And, they say all that, and who knows? I mean, at some point, you just have to trust what they're saying is true. Most of the time, I give them the benefit of the doubt. I assume they're probably not snooping on people's data and stuff like that. But just the fact that they could, to me, is a big deal. Whereas with Android, it's just not the fact. It's just not the case. Yeah, I mean, exactly, Rex. Those password managers can be compromised. But, you kind of have to, there's an extra layer of security. Even on iPhone, there's something called the Secure Enclave, where you can't just get access to the passwords if you have someone's iPhone. You have to authenticate biometrically or put in their passcode to get that second level of access to it. Which is cool and everything, but like I said, if Apple wanted to, they could make a modified software update that turns that off, and then you could just get access to it. Whereas on an Android, there's all of that stuff is a hardware backed security. It's physically secure, so there's not really a way to get to the passwords that are stored in the device itself. But I mean, a keychain is just built into every device. So I never understood why someone would pay for a password manager subscription. Or you could just use the same password everywhere, but then once it's compromised, you have no idea what they have access to. I actually got my stuff stolen fairly recently. I fell for a fake sponsor scam, and somebody basically downloaded all my notes and all my documents and files. According to what I read, they might have access to my passwords as well, but I haven't seen any of my accounts get compromised. And I changed all my important passwords anyway. Luckily, they didn't get any of my crypto.
Bite-sized document? I don't think so. There's all videos of me just doxing myself for being cheap. It's not happening. I'm not paying that. I almost had a heart attack when I found out. I'm paying what? But you need a password manager. That's just the reality of today. I thought I was so smart. I was like, okay, fine. I don't need to do this. I'm running Linux. I downloaded a backup. I made it into an HTML, and then I encrypted it. And then I had an alias, so I unencrypt it when I need to use it, and then quickly encrypt it. Is it unencrypted?
See, he's pretty tech savvy, more than I expected. I mean, to set up Linux on his systems and actually keep it for this long is pretty huge. I know a lot of people who try Linux and then they go right back to Windows pretty quickly because it's a lot. I mean, with great power comes great responsibility. And yes, you can customize everything, but you kind of have to on Linux. You know what I mean? So it's a lot. You have to kind of know what you're doing and be able to understand what you're reading on the screen and stuff like that. But it's really not that bad, and I think it's worth the trade-off. It's kind of the same thing. It's like the difference between storing your money in a bank and trusting the bank to keep it secure for you when you know damn well they're turning right around and lending your money out and making profit off of it, versus storing crypto on a cold wallet where you take full responsibility and full custody, which means also that if somebody steals your seed phrase, it's gone. So it's like you take on more responsibility, but if you do it right, you can make it way more secure than the alternative,
Crypto decrypt. It doesn't matter. Bada bing, bada boom, I saved myself 67 pounds. If I live for, 30, 40, 50 years, that's I saved myself a lot of money. Multimillionaire is a
I need me an editor like he's got.
That's what I should call this.
Plus, I need more charisma,
I
too.
need this file on other devices. I need it on my phone and my laptop, and what if I go abroad? And that's when I discovered glorious SH! Self-hosting. I can just host this on another device.
Yeah, he didn't, he showed a picture of a sort of a home lab setup, but he didn't actually do that. He just did it off of a Steam Deck, which he shows in a minute. I mean, this thing, he's got Raspberry Pis, he's got all kinds of stuff. You know, like, it's cool to see somebody this mainstream but this big of an influence that's talking about this stuff. You know what I mean? I've got a self-hosted, kind of like a mini home lab that I built with a RAID storage. You can actually do RAID Z on Mac, which I didn't know you could do. I mean, I was able to set it up. I just had a spare Mac Mini, so I made it sort of the brain of the RAID Z system that I set up. And I'm gonna set up Nextcloud and you know, do more self-hosting that way. You can self-host your email. You can self-host your. You can actually create a private messaging app and host that yourself as well. That's completely secure, that no one except the people you invite have access to.
I feel like ever since I did my Linux video, so many comments have been like, just wait until it discovers self-hosting. It's gonna be game over. And yet you were right, okay? I started off on a Raspberry Pi 5. This thing is relatively cheap. It's got Ethernet, it runs on low power, and it's powerful for its size. Can do more than enough for what I wanted to do. I found an open source alternative, which is Volt.
Hey, Blood
Warden.
Edits. Yeah, I'm here.
Hold.
And hey, Rex, if you're still watching, can you send me an email? I have a question for you. But yeah, what's up, Blood Edits? I'm here. Got 4 people watching right now. With a channel this big, I mean, you know, when you get that small of viewership, it tells you something. But again, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just doing this because I'm interested in this, and I wanted to signal boost it as much as I can. You got my email, right, Rex?
Host your own password manager, basically. The problem was, I have no clue what the heck I'm doing. What is a reverse proxy? What do you mean I can't just put my IP address in my browser and be done with it? The Volt Warden is so secure that it wouldn't let me connect to it unless I set it up properly. Every time I thought I did it, I kept seeing the spinny circle, and I saw that circle for 2 goddamn days. But once it finally worked, magic. I have done it.
So you can just Vault Warden, which I guess is a self-hosted password manager, which I didn't even know about, but yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll probably set that up too. I mean, it's just, you know, take responsibility for your own stuff. Like, start getting more control over it all, because it's pretty cool actually when you get it all set up your own way. It's like you've got this like whole security layer that no one can touch. You know what I mean? And it's like all under your control. Like, I don't know, something about it. It's just kind of nice.
Saved myself 67 pounds. Tears running down my eyes. It was beautiful. My first successful self-host. My God. No more subscriptions. No more syncing drama. Just my own secure vault. It felt like I was finally breaking out of the matrix for real. And the thing is, once you start understanding how this works, it's really not that bad. If anything, it became super fun because with compatibility layers like Docker, you can so easily just pick and choose what open source software you want to download, keep trying out different ones. The world is your oyster. Just pluck them from the trees and everything just works. So I needed a note-taking app. I found one called Yoplin. That's how you say that, Yoplin. It had a desktop app and a phone app, which is exactly what I wanted. But when I installed Yoplin, this is where things got weird. Do not judge me here, okay? This is... You can probably relate to this, actually. Have you ever been so lazy that you try and find another alternative, but then that leads you on a road that was 10 times more complicated than just not being lazy? The image that I was trying to install on my Pi was not compatible. It was 86 by 64. This is ARM-based structure. It doesn't.
So when he says 86 by 64, he's talking about x86, x64. It's like the old Intel architecture, but when they switched to 64-bit, so they called it x64 or x86, x64. I guess he just says by 64, but it's the same thing. I mean, it's funny, he talks about how he saw that spinning wheel forever. I mean, that's the thing. That's kind of what it's like when you start trying to do all this yourself. You're going to run into a lot of those roadblocks, and you're going to want to give up, you know, but it's worth it to just persevere and keep going. But yeah, I mean, when you have, he's talking about Docker, it really is as simple. It's kind of like having an app store of all these self-hosted apps that you can just run very easily. One thing he doesn't talk about, which I think he might need to do, is what I talked about before, having a RAID system. Like, if you're going to put all this stuff and self-host it, you don't want to just host it off of one disk, because one disk can just die and then there's all your data. So you want to have a redundancy. And what I did was called RAID Z, You can do a lot of different types of RAID where you have multiple disks that kind of redundantly store data. The most basic form is mirroring, where you have two disks that have the same data, and you access it like there's only one copy, but there's actually two copies. And if one of your disks dies, you just swap it out, and it rebuilds the clone, the mirror, so you don't lose your data. And that's great and all, but if you lose two disks, then it's completely gone. So I set up a RAID 5, well, RAID Z. It's kind of like RAID 5, but it's a little bit different. It uses ZFS or ZFS. And it's cool because I've got 4 disks, and 3 of them are usable, and one disk's worth of space is taken up by what they call parity. And so any one of those 4 disks can die, and I can just swap it out, and it'll rebuild itself without losing any data. Oops.
It doesn't matter. Not compatible, I can just find another one. But I thought, hey, why don't I just quickly install this on something that does run 86 by 64? And I look around and I'm like, oh. Well. My Steam Deck runs 86 by 64. So you may be asking, Felix, did you use your portable handheld gaming console to host your note-taking app? Yes, but it gets worse actually. Steam runs Linux. Beautiful. It actually runs Arch, which is the distro I use on my desktop. Match made in heaven. But I thought to myself, well, it's filled with all this like Steam bloat. I should probably uninstall Arch so I can then install Arch. I don't know what's wrong with me. Don't ask. And I did this, of course, just so I wouldn't have to find another image of my note-taking app. But anyway, it works. At the end of the day, that's all that matters.
I don't know. I wouldn't go that route, but I mean, for video's sake, you know, it's kind of funny to have it all on a Steam Deck. It's cool. I mean, the Steam Deck does have battery backup, which is a plus, you know. At least then you don't have to worry about a power outage, you know, knocking it offline or something like that. But I don't know. The fact that it's portable, I don't like that. I mean, me personally, it's better to plug it into Ethernet so you get the best bandwidth you possibly can for something like that. But he ends up doing his whole home lab setup basically off of his Steam Deck.
Now I got my notes app running beautifully. Number 7 or 8.
Damn it, Felix.
It was time.
Y'all saw that, right? I know Rex saw that. Bro, like, come on. That doesn't help with the rumors, man. I gotta take a second. I didn't see that the first time I watched this. Oh, man. You think he did that on purpose? Yeah, I'm a little conspiratorial sometimes, and, you know, he's, in the past, he's kind of done these little, like, hints about stuff like that, but, I mean, come on. It could have just been an honest mistake. But that's, you know, there's always that plausible deniability, right? I don't want to think he's like an actual Nazi here. I've always defended him when that kind of stuff has come up. I never, you know, I don't think he really is, but maybe he was just trolling. You know what I mean?
To say goodbye, Google Drive. Goodbye, Jotaro. $20 for 100 gig? I don't think so. I'm not gonna pay you to hold my data hostage forever. Not happening. What if I live for another 600 years?
You didn't see it, Rex? Okay. How far? Right here, watch.
My notes app running beautifully. Number 7 or 8. It was time. Goodbye, Jotaro. $20 for 100
You saw it that time, right?
Hold my data hostage forever. Not happening. What if I live for another 600 years? Think about how much money that's going to be to Google. No more subscriptions. Redundant subscriptions. Instead of Google Drive, I set up File Browser. The thing that bothers me about all these free online
you know people are going to go
storages,
crazy over that.
A certain amount at least, is that first of all, it's not safe. Second of all, I don't know what they're doing with that. Thirdly, I hate how it's used. I don't know if you can relate to this. Maybe it's just like a me problem, but let's say I've gone outside, I've touched grass, I've taken all these photos and videos, and then I sit down in front of my computer, and then all of a sudden internet goes down, and I'm like, what happened? And then it's like, oh yeah, my Google Drive decided to back up every single photo and video I've ever taken. And it's like, I don't want that. I want certain images. Let me pick those first. And I don't want you to suck up my
What do you think, Rex? Was he trolling? He did it on purpose or honest mistake? I don't know. I'm sure that like people are gonna write diatribes about this. It's funny. It's kind of funny, you know, especially if it's an accident, considering all the other rumors he's dealt with his whole life.
Higher bandwidth. With file browser, I can throttle the speed and I can do it when I want to, which files I want to. I went a little nerdy and overboard, a surprise. And I wrote a bunch of aliases and shell functions so that I can define push or pull to download or upload, which device, my phone, laptop, desktop, deck, and which subfolder. And I do all this with glorious SSH. It actually solved another problem for me, which is always sharing files between my phone and my desktop. I never know how to do it. Apparently, I didn't know this. I feel like everyone is tuning out because I'm talking about SSH again. But you can run it on your phone. Look, I'm connected. And then
He's saying SSH now, glorious SSH, but earlier he said glorious SH. I wonder if he's getting those two mixed up. I mean, it sounds like he knows what he's talking about when he says SSH because he's talking about connecting remotely, but it's a little bit different than like SH, self-hosting. SSH is a secure shell connection, and it's pretty common. I mean, in Linux and even on Mac, pretty much any system these days, even on Windows, people are doing it these days. But it's a good way to set up an encrypted connection between a client and a server for just general operations, file transfer, stuff like that, remote control, you know.
And I thought, okay, now I gotta do an opposite script on my phone. But then I realized I can just connect to my desktop to run the script. It doesn't matter, okay? It's cool. Just trust me, it's cool. Number 9. AI. We have to talk about AI. I don't know about you, but I don't like using AI.
I don't like AI. I feel like AI is ruining everything. And yet, I do still use it. Mainly to help me with school, you know. I mean, obviously not to cheat or anything, but sometimes it helps me to like better understand a concept that I'm having trouble gleaning from the source material, like textbooks and stuff like that. But I mean, once in a while, I mean, as people who've subscribed to this channel know, I've uploaded videos generated by AI. But I'm going to delete those today, actually. I'm going to do it on this stream because they're stupid and they don't belong here, and it's time to get rid of them. I want to make this channel like a bunch of stuff that I made by hand. And if it's garbage, then that's fine. At least I made it myself, and I didn't use a bunch of AI to like fart it out for me. You know what I mean?
Feels like I'm kneeling directly to the tech overlords. And not to mention the goddamn subscription fees. I feel like I'm spoon feeding the machine that has stolen all my data, more of my data. Here you go. Nice and fat. Here you go. Not happening. But I got curious and, you know, I built my own computer not long ago and I spent a lot of money on it. Why don't I just see if I can run it myself? It's a beast. So I set up a local language model called Mixtral. Emphasis on local, which means it runs on my computer completely offline. It's beautiful. Now I can search whatever I want. And I can ask it dumb questions like, why is my left toe bigger than my right toe? And no one knows about it. Not Google, not AI overlords, not even you. Step 10. How many steps are there?
Self-hosted AI is a good point. AI studies showed heavy users of AI or cognitive decline. Yeah. I mean, you start offloading more of your thinking to a machine and you don't have to exercise your neurons anymore and you just become dependent on it. You know, I know some people like that. Rex, you might know who I'm talking about. That just rely on AI for everything and, you know, don't do any actual thinking of their own. I mean, we already had people who were not thinking for themselves my entire life, long before AI came along. And it's just accelerating it. You know, it's just making it so much worse. I mean, I definitely think it has a place, but as far as replacing all of our jobs, all that's going to happen, and I said this years ago, before AI became what it is, years ago, I was saying that as soon as businesses catch wind of the fact that they don't have to pay engineers six-figure salaries and they can just pay somebody half that to just punch a bunch of stuff into an AI, and they can make a piece of software that at least does enough of what they want it to do, that they can justify the lower cost and the lower quality, businesses are just going to jump at that and start firing everybody. And then like the entire software engineering industry will disappear. And I used to tell people that at some of the companies I worked at, and they looked at me like I was crazy, and they said, "Oh, that'll never happen." And we're literally watching it happen right now. Because businesses don't care about your software being perfect. They don't care about like any of the stuff that engineers care about. They just care about, is it good enough that we can make money off of it and we don't have to pay people as much and we get to keep more of the money? Pretty much that's all they care about. And so every service is just going to get crappier as soon as we start replacing everybody with AI. I mean, services are already terrible as it is, and they're just going to get worse. Just mark my words. I do think eventually, though, the vibe coding bubble will pop. Software engineering bubble already popped, and right now we've just got a bunch of AI coders, vibe coders, and that's going to pop too. Because we're all wanting the singularity to happen, like the artificial general intelligence thing to happen, and we're just not there yet. We're not anywhere close to where we think we are. So I think eventually we're going to run up against a brick wall of what AI can actually do, and all these vibe coders are going to just, I think that whole industry is going to fall apart. But most businesses don't care because they don't need like bleeding edge stuff. They just need basic software that just gets the job done. You know what I mean?
And we have so much left. PDFs, Google Docs, calendar, contacts. I was honestly getting a little tired at this point to try and find an alternative to all of these, but that's when I discovered Nextcloud. It's an open source self-host beast. And
yeah, Nextcloud is the key to the whole thing. I mean, you run this on your own hardware at home. You set up your port forwarding and then you connect to it remotely with all your devices. And you can have your own cloud and all these apps and everything you want storing on your own hard drives. And everything's encrypted between you and your own server. And so it's basically impossible for anybody to sniff that and find out the data that's being transferred and steal any of your personal information.
All of this for you. Maybe there are better singular alternatives, but the fact that I can get all of this.
And I should emphasize again, when I first started this stream, I brought this up. Remember, all of this stuff is open source as well. And if you're not super, familiar with what that means, it means every bit of code that's running on any of these apps, any of these platforms, you can go and look at every bit of code. You can know every single thing that it's doing by looking at the code yourself. That way, if there's a security flaw, you can spot it yourself, and you can either fix it and upload your changes to the code base because it's open source. You can fork it and make your own version. You can do pretty much anything you want with it and change how it works if you want. If you don't like the way it works, you can make your own version and customize it your own way at the code level, and then you can run that version. And if it's really good, you can actually share those changes with other people, and then they can start using your version, and you can spin off, because the licenses for all this software is set up so that you can do that. You can make your own version of it and spin it off if you want.
Baked in one was exactly what I needed, and just one quick install and it was done. I was completely out of Google, and it felt amazing. Finally, I'm free. From here on is when I needed to tighten things up a little bit. I actually bought a domain. I know, I paid a subscription fee. But it's worth it. If you're self-hosting, it's actually worth it because you can get a domain for $5 a year. It means I can get better security features, and I can put all these services in subdomains. So like docs.mysubdomain.com and password.mysubdomain.com, like all these different things I made, I can access easily.
I own chazlogic.com. Right now it just redirects to this live or this YouTube channel, but once I get everything set up, I'm going to be setting up a web presence at that domain. So, and I'm hopefully, I don't know, we'll see how far I go with it.
I don't have to type my IP address for each one. And I started to tighten down the security as well, especially because I was looking online. I'm like, I'm getting a lot of bots that are pinging me. I don't like this. Everything is locked in with the password already, but I added another layer of zero trust, so you can't access anything unless you have another login. I locked in my IP address with Tailscale. Beautiful Tailscale. I could make a whole video. I had a fail to ban. It was definitely worth spending some time locking things down. And I think I found a good balance of it being secure, but also not like a huge hassle every time you want to access either.
Yeah, every domain name I have, it just gets flooded with bots trying to hack it. They always look for like common security holes, and it doesn't have any of them because I'm not hosting any of the stuff that they're trying to penetrate. So they don't, it's just a bunch of annoying traffic that doesn't go anywhere. So he's talking about ways you can filter all that off. And if an IP address is like pinging you too many times with requests, you can have it automatically ban that IP from sending you any more requests. Kind of the way that Cloudflare does it too.
Now, swapping out all these Google services, there's one that I just can't escape, and I don't mean YouTube. There's one that sucked the most to get rid of, and that was actually Google Maps. Because Google tracks you so well, it is so good at predicting traffic. And since I drive a lot in Tokyo, I really rely on that to get to places on.
There are alternatives to Google Maps besides just the built-in car GPS that he ends up using. And the hated one, the YouTube channel I'm going to be linking in the description, goes into detail on a video recently about his alternatives to Google Maps that are just as good and don't require using Google.
Time. You can't be late in Japan. It's like a death sentence. The first time I used my open source alternative, I ended up 30 minutes late. And that's when I realized, hey, maybe Big Brother tracking everything isn't so bad. Maybe surveillance has its perks. But I stuck to my de-googling, and the best alternative I found was just using my car's GPS. It has all this Japanese services built in anyway. I ended up using my Pi to replace my Google TV, and I'm running Kodi on that. I haven't really fully set it up yet, so not much to say about it. And you may remember I'm doing...
You can probably install custom firmware on your Google TV as well. I mean, those run a variant of Android, and sometimes you can install a custom ROM right on the TV itself.
All of this on my Steam Deck. I added an extension so I can plug it into Ethernet. That way it runs on less power. It runs completely headless. And I can monitor all of it on my safe network system that I have. But then I thought it'd be kind of cool to use the display so I can use that for monitoring. I ran Tmux and BTOP on it, and it looks so cool. You know, this all started because I wanted to de-Google and try what that was like. And by the end of it, my Steam Deck looks like it's a detonator for a bomb or something.
Like, dude, this guy's got so much money. He could build like a whole organization. He could create a whole company. Like, he could fund all these, open source projects that are always struggling for funding. Like, he could do a lot to actually push the whole movement way forward. Somebody with the resources that he has, not just monetarily, but the reach that he has on social media, could be massive. I mean, the open source movement and the free software movement have been waiting for this level of mainstream coverage forever. So to me, this is a big breakthrough.
Like that. And before you ask, yes, I can still game on it, all right? It runs 2% of my CPU. It's like this weird home lab abomination at this point, but I love it. I love looking at it. I got it sitting next on my desk. It's just a vibe, man. Every time I see it, I'm happy. Another fact that I like using my Steam Deck is the fact that I can just use whatever I have around me. People have these like super sick home lab setups, which are awesome. I get it, but my point with this is that if you wanted to de-Google, you can use whatever you have at your disposal. It shouldn't cost you any extra money.
Yeah, but dude, come on. You got all this money. You should build like a full-on home lab setup, and you should make videos about it. Like, seriously. There's channels that do this already, and you would be the biggest one by far if you did that. Rex, what do you mean? Like, I didn't get what he meant about Japan. Like, if you're late places, like, it's a big deal. Is it just like a cultural thing, or what do you mean? Is it like an insult if you show up late?
Like, I'm not going to pretend that Steam Deck is the ultimate self-host device. You're probably better off using a Pi, but maybe you have some device laying around at home that you can run Linux on. Bring it back to life, instead of throwing it away. And I hate to be that guy, but it's better for the environment. Yes, it's a lot of tinkering, but you learn a lot. And by the end of it, it's done. Like, I don't have to touch it. Google's mantra is don't be evil, but I still think they have a lot to do to qualify for that title. I feel like on your phone you have all these settings with privacy and give permissions and all these things that they ask you. But it kind of feels like one of those toys that Björn has that it's just like a bunch of buttons that doesn't actually do anything. Unless you go all the way with privacy, it doesn't mean anything. Don't call it privacy. And for me, it's not even necessarily about Google. I think it's more about big tech in general.
Yeah, because like if apps couldn't get your information some other way by fingerprinting you based on your activity or some other method to get around your, permissions controls, then they wouldn't put the app out. Like, because a lot of these apps require people to monetize their data and in order to like exist. So I feel like if they're not able to get around those permissions controls, then they wouldn't exist. What's up, Parker? Streetlight fan. Klasky Supo. I guess I don't know what fandom that is. I know what Klasky Supo is. They've been around forever. I mean, even The Simpsons used to use them for their animation. The late thing is considered irresponsible. Oh, in Japan, it's irresponsible and immature to be late. I mean, it's considered that here too, right? I mean, people still show up late, but you know.
I hate where software is going. Unnecessary subscriptions, ads, locking, updates changing the entire UI because you're...
Like, dude, you are literally saying what Richard Stallman's been saying for decades now. So people who don't know Richard Stallman, and I mentioned him earlier, he created a bunch of utilities that replicated what Unix was doing, because Unix was this like lockdown proprietary platform that was owned by AT&T and a lot of other big companies. And they weren't allowing people to license it for a reasonable price. They were charging insane prices just to install it on their computers and use it. So he basically just made his own versions of all the tools that Unix uses. And then this guy Linus Torvalds comes along and creates a kernel using his tools. And that's what Linux is. It's actually the GNU tools made by Richard Stallman, and then the kernel made by Linus Torvalds, and you combine them together, and that's Linux. And like literally, these guys have been saying exactly what you're talking about this whole time, that we've got all these software products that are closed down, closed source. You can't tell what they're doing. You can't see any of the code. You can't modify the code. So if there's something wrong or if there's a security flaw, you won't even know, first of all. And secondly, you can't fix it even if you did know. And platforms like TiVo, I don't know if you guys even know what TiVo is, but you know, it was like the first box you could buy that lets you pause, record, and rewind live cable television. Nowadays, that's like, you know, more commonplace than it used to be. But back in the day, TiVo was the first version of it. And they ran Linux on the machine, but they ran it in a lockdown way that you couldn't access and you couldn't modify. And they called it TiVoization. And it was one of the first platforms to do something like that. But now we've got platforms all over the place that are just as locked down and restricted. And some of them might even run open source code, but you would never know because they lock it behind layers of security, and you wouldn't know what they run. And so basically now at this point, if a company wants to, they could spy on everything you're doing, and you'd have no way to know. Like, you literally have to trust the companies not to spy on you, right? And I think this whole modern era with crypto kind of taking over the financial industry and the whole idea of like trustless transactions and a trustless financial system, it's hopefully the culture around that is kind of feeding back into regular technology, and people are starting to understand that, you know, we shouldn't be trusting anybody. We shouldn't be trusting the normal tech giants either. Even outside of the finance space, we need to get to a place where trust is not a required part of the transaction, where instead you can verify absolutely everything. The TiVo Tropic Thunder bit? I don't know what you mean. I haven't seen that movie in so long.
More prone somehow to get more locked in. With YouTube, you know, it's been constantly changing for years and years and years just because they figured this is the best way to suck you in. If I host my own apps, there's none of that. So now I got my own home lab abomination, and I love it. I'm finally free from the tech overlords. It was 100% worth it. And look, bro, I made you one too.
I should have made a tinfoil hat so I could like pretend to. Anyway, whatever. You know, this guy is so rich. Okay, he could make his own alternative to YouTube if he wanted. You know what I mean? Where like all these concepts and principles are like at the core of it, and that's really what we need. We need something other than YouTube, and I think somebody with his reach could actually get people to move over to it. And there's so many people who would work with him to build it. I would do it. I'm working on my master's degree in computer science. I can help with that, you know. And I'd be willing to help him set up his home lab and all this other stuff too. Obviously, that's never going to happen, but I'm just saying, like, he's got plenty of people that he's inspiring to move in this direction, and he could spin off of YouTube completely if he wanted. Anyway, I'm going to put some links in the description about these other channels I talked about. In fact, like this video, I actually downloaded it so there wouldn't be any ads. But I could probably switch over to YouTube right now. I'm just going to show this channel here. Oh, I'm not even subscribed to him on this. Wow, I didn't know that. But yeah, this channel is great. He's been going at this for a long time, talking about a lot of the same stuff that PewDiePie just talked about. How to lock down your phone, all about Graphene OS, all the different features of how to do it, how to de-Google, how to be anonymous, which is even another level to it that PewDiePie didn't even talk about. I don't know, it's great. Like, this is kind of like a quiet war that's happening against big tech right now. And, you know, we're on the front lines of it. Like, we need more and more people to wake up to this stuff and move away from all of these closed platforms that are working with governments around the world. I mean, there's been countless examples throughout history of security flaws that were left in place so the governments could take advantage of them. Microsoft has revealed this. There was what was it called? The WannaCry ransomware a couple years ago that took over all these Microsoft systems across the world. It exploited a security flaw that Microsoft had known about for years and refused to patch because the government was using it to literally spy on people. And that's just one example. There's security flaws that are still there right now that we don't even know about that are probably still being used for the exact same reason. And because you don't know all the code that's running on that device, you have no way to know. And if governments can exploit it, that means hackers can too. So people like the NSO group, the Pegasus malware that was being used to spy on phones, not just iPhones, but Android as well, you know, regular Android, not Graphene, was well, what is this? Debunking CIA propaganda on YouTube. Is he saying Filthy Frank was involved in CIA propaganda? I gotta watch that. That looks crazy. But yeah, I mean, the Pegasus malware was used to break into phones using known security flaws by pretty much anybody. Like, any government around the world that wanted to could license that software from the NSO group, and they could just pretty much get into any phone they wanted remotely. That's insane. Like, they've been fighting the war against us this whole time, and we've barely even been putting up a fight. But I think that this is a big step in that direction. So I'll put a link to this in the description. Cool. Anyway, that's all. I just wanted to show you guys that video. But I really need to get to bed. I stayed up late and working on schoolwork and saw this come in my feed. And I was like, I got to do this right now. You know, I couldn't wait. Hopefully this inspires more people to go in this direction. Like, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. I mean, it's like freedom versus security, you know? I mean, actually, not really. That's actually not a very good metaphor. I mean, in this way, you can actually have freedom and security at the same time. But it's all under your control. Wellness, Area 51. I think Odyssey is a type of decentralized YouTube. Yeah, Odyssey was based on the LBRY crypto token. And there was a huge SEC lawsuit. And they actually, the LBRY people lost that lawsuit. They shouldn't have, but they did. And if you watch videos by like John Deaton, he goes into detail about why they shouldn't have lost that case. The arguments that were used against them were being used in other cases that the SEC lost, but for some reason the judge ruled in the SEC's favor in this case. And you got to wonder if the SEC, you know, pressured the judge into doing it. But yeah, the Odyssey platform, they said they might have to shut down. I'm surprised they're actually still running. But it's based on that decentralized network. And it's cool. I mean, it works really well. I mean, yeah, there's definitely already kind of decentralized and more free alternatives to YouTube, but the issue is that none of them have nearly as much user base as YouTube does. And if somebody like a Mr. Beast or a PewDiePie suddenly spun up their own, or maybe endorsed one of these and moved everything over there, that would be huge. I think at one time PewDiePie did move to Stream.me, or no, DLive. Wasn't it DLive? So he was on DLive at one point, and their contract ended. Oh, so YouTube actually made him another contract. YouTube made a contract with him to... Okay, wow. So he has a contract with YouTube. I didn't even think about that, but that makes sense. So it'd be pretty hard for him to switch to another platform, I guess, unless his contract is over. Oh, Internet Anarchist. I like him a lot. Yeah, I don't use Odyssey as much as I should. That's true, Area 51. He talks about that in the PewDiePie video. He said, these other platforms, they just don't have billions of dollars of investment, so it's hard for them to kind of get a mainstream, pull. But, he might not be a billionaire himself, but I think if he's influential enough that if he, maybe once his contract is up, he'll move to another platform. Maybe that's the only reason he's sticking with YouTube, despite de-Googling everything else. Yeah, it's not cheap, man, but if you think about how big most people's audiences are, I could easily host this channel myself without a problem because I don't get that many views, right? So it really just comes down to what your goals are. If you're trying to make a bunch of money off of it, you basically have to use YouTube because that's the only game in town. That's where everybody's going. But I think PewDiePie could get people onto something else if he wanted to. He could probably build it himself, or at least pay for it to be built. Yeah, it really just comes down to people pulling their resources together and making that happen, But I mean, you're not going to get as much pull because you're not going to get the mainstream people just, doom scrolling on your app. That's really that's why YouTube is the key, because people just scroll on YouTube for hours on end, mindlessly. And that's annoying, every app has just become that. Every app I use is just doom scrolling at this point. You could literally make an app called doom scrolling, and that's all you're doing. It's like every app just devolves into that eventually, Maybe you could make a game called doom scrolling. How could you gamify scrolling? Huh. It's actually a good idea. I bet somebody's already done it. Every time I have a good idea, someone else has already done it. The Endless Doom Scroller. Well, it's a project. Doom Scroll is a roguelike narrative game that aims to reduce screen time. Well, I don't want to reduce screen time. I want to make a game out of it. Well, you couldn't call it Doom Scroll because there's already games that have that name, so probably get in trouble. Doom posting on Telegram. Haven't heard of it. Yeah, I plan to start making games at some point. When I get out of school and I have more free time, I should be able to start working on it. I've got a lot of tech debt on my live stream, things I got to fix that I haven't done yet, so that's kind of priority one. Man, I'm really proud of this template. I just keep looking at it like it's so cool. I made this in Art Studio, which is not a free app, but it's basically like Photoshop. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. I like this format, though, where I don't have to worry so much about editing or putting together a complicated format, or I just grab a video or grab some stuff and just talk about it. I've got a few different channels where I do this now. On the Slag, it's more of a talk show format where I have people come on and talk and stuff like that. Or hopefully it'll turn into that eventually once I figure out the latency problem. But yeah, thanks for watching this. And I hope that it gets more people talking about this whole movement in that direction of free software. Not even just for anonymous reasons, but like we got to get away from closed off platforms. Like we need to get to a new era where we know what's running. I mean, what we ought to do, and this is something I'm considering petitioning for, is like get people to, like, if there's any software that's written by the government, like anytime we spend taxpayer money and that taxpayer money goes toward making a piece of software or hardware, it needs to be completely open source, right? We should never be funding closed source software with taxpayer dollars. I feel like that's a social issue that people could get behind. Area 51, no, I won't be using Google Meet on the next Slag stream. For now, I'm going to just do it all through Rumble, because Rumble's got a web-based, like a browser-based stream studio that I can use, where I can have everybody join like in the browser, and I can screen share and stuff like that. It's kind of like Zoom, but it's all in browser. And then I stream from that to YouTube. One of the downsides is I won't be able to use my template that I made for that channel, at least for the phone call portion of the episode. But that's okay. I can always switch between the two, so I'll make it work. We'll see how it works out. I never know how to end these, but I need to get to bed, so talk to you